A few months ago, I had a consultation with a mom who was convinced she wanted to bring her family to Oahu for a week. She'd seen the pictures, done the research, and was ready to book. But as we talked, I learned something interesting. She wasn't actually excited about hiking Diamond Head or driving to the North Shore. What she really wanted? To sit by a pool with a drink in her hand while someone else watched her kids for a few hours. When I showed her what a week in Hawaii would actually cost versus what she could get at an all-inclusive in Cancun, her jaw dropped. Same week, half the price, and it came with everything she actually wanted. Unlimited food, drinks included, and a kids club. She left that consultation booking Mexico instead. That conversation made me realize something. A lot of you are asking the wrong question. It's not, should I go to Hawaii? The real question is, what kind of vacation do I actually want? And that's what we're unpacking today. Okay, so I know a lot of you are in the phase where you're Googling best beach vacations with kids at midnight, and you've got tabs open for Hawaii, Cancun, maybe the Bahamas or Puerto Rico, and you're just stuck. You don't know which one to pick because they all look amazing, right? Turquoise water, palm trees, sunshine. Here's what I need you to understand right from the start. This episode isn't about me convincing you Hawaii is better than Mexico or the Caribbean. I run a Hawaii travel business. I love Hawaii, but I'm also a mom who stayed at all-inclusive resorts in Cabo, Cancun, Riviera Maya, Puerto Rico, and the Bahamas. I've done both types of vacations with my kids, and they serve completely different purposes. So what I want to do today is help you figure out what you actually want from this trip. Because once you know that, the decision becomes way easier. Before we get into costs and logistics and all that stuff, there's one question you need to answer first. What type of vacation are you looking for? Because I think vacations basically fall into two categories. There's a resort vacation, where you want to arrive, plant yourself at the pool, and have everything taken care of for you. And there's the adventure vacation, where you just want to get out and explore and experience the place you're visiting. Hawaii and Mexico or the Caribbean excel at completely different types of trips, and trying to make one work like the other is where people get disappointed. If what you want is to sit by a pool and have someone bring you drinks while your kids are entertained at a kids club, and you want all your food included so you never have to think about what's for dinner, Mexico or the Caribbean are built for that. There are all-inclusive resorts everywhere. When we stayed at the Hyatt Ziva in Cancun, you'd walk out of your room and there was food everywhere. The kids could grab chicken nuggets at 3 p.m. I could get a cocktail at any of the 6 bars, room service included. It's designed so you never have to leave the property or open your wallet. There are no all-inclusive resorts in Hawaii. 0. I say this in almost every consultation, and it still catches people off guard every single time. You're paying for your hotel, and then you're paying for every meal, every snack, every drink. A family of 4 can easily drop $200 to $300 on dinner at a decent restaurant. My kids want shave ice? That's $15. Breakfast? You're looking at $60 to $80 for a family. That adds up so fast. But where Hawaii wins? If you want to actually do things. Hike through a volcanic crater. Drive one of the most scenic roads in the world. Experience a different culture. Watch the sunrise from a volcano summit. You're not going to find Hawaii Volcanoes National Park in Cancun. You're not going to experience a real Hawaiian luau with traditional hula and kalua pig in the Bahamas. That stuff doesn't exist there. So the first question is this: do you want to relax at a resort or do you want to explore? Because that answer tells you almost everything. Your kids' ages? That changes the entire equation. If you have toddlers or young elementary kids, all-inclusives are fantastic. At the Hard Rock in Riviera Maya, my kids could eat whenever they were hungry. When they napped, we ordered room service and ate on the balcony while they slept. The kids' club had activities all day, and they actually wanted to go. It removed so much of the stress of traveling with little ones. Hawaii with young kids is doable, but it's more work. You're schlepping them to restaurants 3 times a day. You're packing snacks because a bag of goldfish at an ABC store is like $8. You're navigating car seats in your rental car. It can feel exhausting when what you really need is a break. But once your kids hit maybe 8 or 9 and can handle longer activities, Hawaii becomes incredibly rewarding. They can hike to waterfalls, snorkel with sea turtles, learn about volcanoes. My kids still talk about seeing the lava glow at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park years later. We watched the sunrise at Haleakala, and they thought it was the coolest thing ever. Those are the kind of experiences you just can't replicate sitting at a pool. Teenagers? Hawaii. I've traveled with my nieces and nephews as teens, and what I've noticed is they're completely over the resort bubble. My niece wanted to find thrift stores. My nephew wanted to photograph black sand beaches and weird roadside stands and things that didn't look like a brochure. An all-inclusive in Cancun is just a different version of a mall. Hawaii gives them something actually interesting to explore. Now money, this is where people get surprised. For 2026, mid-range all-inclusive resorts in Cancun or the Riviera Maya run about $400 to $900 per night for 2 adults. The Bahamas and the Caribbean fall into a similar range. When you book packages, you're often looking at around $1,250 per person per week, sometimes less during off-season. You can find deals starting around $700 to $900 per person if you're flexible with dates. That includes your room, all your meals, unlimited drinks, usually some activities, and sometimes kids' clubs. Everything except your flights and maybe excursions off the resort. Now, Hawaii. A decent 3-star hotel averages around $350 per night. A 4-star resort, more like $455. And starting in January 2026, Hawaii added another tax increase. So you're roughly paying 17 to 18% in taxes on top of your room rate, depending on which island. So that $200 per night room, it's closer to $235 after taxes. A $350 room becomes around $410. The taxes alone can add $300 or more to your week. But that's just your room. Now you need to feed your family. Breakfast at a hotel restaurant, $60 to $80 for 4 people. Lunch somewhere casual like a poke place or a food truck, maybe $50 or $70. Dinner at a sit-down restaurant, $150 to $200, easily. And that's not even fancy, that's just regular dinner. You can try to save money by getting a condo with a kitchen and cooking some meals, but that's a whole other decision with its own trade-offs. I actually did an entire episode on this. Episode 38 covers the resort versus condo versus vacation rental question in detail if you want to dig into that. It's worth a listen before you book anything. Add it all up, and a week in Hawaii for family of 4 can run $5,000 to $7,000 just for accommodations and food, before you factor in rental car, activities, flights, any of that. The same week at an all-inclusive in Mexico might cost you $3,000 to $4,000 total for the resort portion. If budget is a major factor, Mexico and the Caribbean are cheaper for a resort-style vacation. That's just the math. I'm not trying to talk you out of Hawaii, but I want you to go in with realistic expectations. Where you're flying from makes a bigger difference than people realize. From the West Coast, Hawaii makes total sense flight-wise. Los Angeles to Honolulu is 5 to 6 hours. San Francisco is similar. The kids can watch a couple of movies and you're there. Mexico from the West Coast is even shorter. LA to Cabo is like 2.5 hours. Phoenix to Cancun is under 4 hours. But if you're on the East Coast, the equation shifts completely. New York to Hawaii is 11 plus hours, often with a connection. That's brutal with kids. Meanwhile, New York to Cancun is under 4 hours direct. The Bahamas from the East Coast is even shorter. You can be there in 2.5 to 3 hours. Puerto Rico, same. For East Coast families especially, the Caribbean just makes so much more logistical sense. I've had clients tell me they picked Puerto Rico purely because it was a 3-hour flight versus 11 hours to Hawaii, and I totally get it. Something people don't always think about until the last minute, passports. For Hawaii, you don't need them if you're a U.S. citizen. It's domestic travel. If you've got young kids and you haven't gotten them passports yet, that's one less thing to deal with. Puerto Rico is the same way because it's a U.S. territory. No passports needed. But Mexico, the Bahamas, and the rest of the Caribbean, everyone needs a passport. If you don't have them, you're looking at $165 per adult and $135 per child, plus the time to apply and wait. For a family of 4, that's closer to $600 just in passport fees before you even book the trip. So factor that into your budget if you're comparing options. Weather is also worth talking about because I've been burned by it and I want you to go in with realistic expectations. We were at Aulani one April for spring break and it rained 2 out of the 3 days. I was genuinely bummed. We pivoted to more indoor stuff than I planned and it was fine. Aulani is one of the easier places to be when it rains because there's so much on the property. But it wasn't the trip I pictured, and April is supposed to be one of the good months. On my most recent Maui trip in February, it rained during a luau I'd been looking forward to. They handed out ponchos and we ate our food in the rain. I kept telling myself this was type 2 fun. You know, not fun in the moment, fun in retrospect. I'm still deciding. But then there was a December trip where we had perfect weather every single day. And at one point, it rained for about 10 minutes while we were driving, and when it cleared, there was a double rainbow over the road. My kids lost their minds. So Hawaii absolutely delivers on weather. It just doesn't guarantee it. The general pattern, summer, which is May through October, is the dry season and usually great. November through March is rainier, though it tends to come in short bursts rather than all-day gloom. The best weather windows are typically April through May and September through October. Not too hot, less rain, and fewer crowds. Those are my favorite times to go, but even then, pack a light layer and don't build your whole trip around one specific outdoor moment that can't get rained on. Mexico's rainy season is May through October, with September being the wettest month. Hurricane season runs June through November, with the highest risk in September and October. The best time to visit is December through April, perfect weather, though it's also peak season, so prices are higher and beaches are crowded. The Caribbean is similar with some exceptions. Islands like Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao sit below the hurricane belt and have much more consistent weather year-round. If you're worried about storms but need to travel in summer, those are worth looking at. Multi-generational trips are where things get really interesting, because you'd think older folks would prefer the simplicity of all-inclusives, right? Not always. When we travel with my in-laws, they actually can't stand all-inclusives. My mother-in-law doesn't drink alcohol, so she feels like she's paying for alcohol she's never going to use. And they're foodies. They find the all-inclusive food underwhelming and repetitive. They'd rather stay at a regular hotel and budget to go out to different restaurants each night. They want variety, they want local experiences, and they want to explore. But in consultations, I've had other families tell me their parents or grandparents with mobility issues love all-inclusives. They can keep a stable routine, they don't have to navigate different restaurants or figure out new places every day. They know exactly what to expect. It's less overwhelming, especially if they're dealing with health stuff or just don't want the stress of planning. Same destination, totally different preferences. You've got to know your family before you book. Language is worth mentioning, even though it's not a huge deal for most people. In Mexico, you'll encounter Spanish. Most resort staff speak English, but once you leave the resort for excursions, you might run into language barriers. Some people love that cultural experience and see it as part of the adventure. Others find it stressful, especially with kids. Hawaii, everyone speaks English. Puerto Rico is technically bilingual, but English is widely spoken in tourist areas. The Bahamas, English is the primary language. If you're nervous about navigating a foreign language with the kids, or if you have family members who'd be uncomfortable with that, it might factor into your decision. So when does Hawaii actually make sense despite the higher costs? If you want legitimate cultural immersion, learning about Hawaiian history, experiencing a real luau, understanding the connection between the land and the people, Hawaii offers that in a way Mexico and the Caribbean don't. And I say that as someone who's been dancing hula for over 20 years, so I have maybe a stronger opinions than the average travel podcaster about what actually counts as authentic Hawaiian culture. It's a different world right there in the US. And you can really experience it if you go looking for it. If you're into unique nature experiences, active volcanoes, black sand beaches, dramatic coastline drives like the Road to Hana, sunrise at Haleakala where you're above the clouds, Hawaii delivers experiences you literally cannot find anywhere else on Earth. If you want a mix of beach time and adventure, you can snorkel with manta rays in the morning, hit the beach in the afternoon, watch the sunset from a scenic overlook, and then grab dinner at a local spot. Every day feels different. You're not doing the same thing over and over. And if you're a family that values those kinds of experiences over resort amenities, Hawaii is worth every penny. Those are the trips my family talks about years later. On the flip side, when does Mexico or the Caribbean make more sense? If what you need is simple relaxation, you want to sit by a pool, not think about meals, maybe let the kids do kids club while you read a book, go to Mexico or the Caribbean. That's what they do best. They've perfected that model. If you want the most vacation for your money, all-inclusives offer incredible value. You know your total cost up front. No surprise $200 dinner bills, no worrying about how much drinks cost, no budgeting every day. It's all paid for. If you have young kids and the idea of dragging them to restaurants 3 times a day sounds exhausting, an all-inclusive removes that stress completely. They can eat chicken nuggets at the buffet whenever they want. You don't have to negotiate with a hangry 4-year-old in a restaurant. If you're on the East Coast and flight time matters, why put yourself and your kids through 11 hours of travel when you can be on a beach in 3 hours? And if you just want sunshine and a beach and you don't care about exploring, Mexico and the Caribbean give you exactly that at a fraction of the cost. There's nothing wrong with that. That's totally valid vacation. I've stayed at the Hyatt Ziva in both Cabo and Cancun. The Cabo one is beautiful, right on the water, and the kids love the pools. Cancun has more going on if you want to leave the resort. We've stayed at the Hard Rock in Riviera Maya, which is massive and has this whole music theme the kids thought was cool. In Puerto Rico, we've done the Hilton Caribe and the Hyatt Regency Grand Reserve. The Grand Reserve had an amazing pool area, though it's a bit farther from San Juan. Most recently, we stayed at the Margaritaville in the Bahamas, which was fun and kitschy in a good way. And you know what? We had a great time at every single one. The kids loved the water slides. The food was good enough. I enjoyed sitting by the pool with a drink. It was easy and relaxing and exactly what we needed at the time. But when I think about the trips that have really stuck with us as a family, the ones my kids still talk about years later, it's the Hawaii trips. Seeing the lava glow at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, swimming with sea turtles at Two-Step on the Big Island, watching the sunrise from Haleakala and feeling like we were on top of the world. Those are the experiences that became core memories for our family. So for us, Hawaii wins when we want a trip that feels like a real adventure. All-inclusives win when we just need a break and want everything to be easy. Both have their place. So how do you actually figure out which one is right for you? I had a client recently who's a good example of why this matters. She and her husband do Cabo every couple of years. Same resort, all-inclusive, barely leave the property. They love it. But this time she wanted to do something a little different, more exploration, she said. Hawaii seemed like the obvious next step. But she hadn't done any research into what Hawaii actually costs. She assumed it'd be roughly the same as Cabo. When we walked through the actual numbers in her consultation, hotels, 3 meals a day for her family, rental car, activities, she went quiet for a second. It was easily double what she had been spending. And she wasn't wrong to want to explore. And she wasn't wrong to want more exploration. But the question she needed to ask first wasn't Hawaii or Cabo. It was, what does exploration actually mean for my family, and what am I willing to pay for it? So that's where I'd start. Not with Google, not with Instagram, with an honest conversation with yourself and whoever you're traveling with. Do you want to actually go somewhere, or do you want to arrive somewhere? Because those are different trips. Then look at your kids' ages with fresh eyes. Not, are they old enough to travel, but are they old enough to remember this, and will they care? Because a 4-year-old at a resort with a water slide and a 4-year-old on a 2-mile hike to a waterfall are having very different days, and only one of them is having fun. Do the real math on costs, not just the hotel rate, the whole trip. Meals, snacks, car, activity. Compare that to an all-inclusive package where you know your number up front. Sometimes Hawaii surprises you in a good way when you run the real numbers. Sometimes it confirms the sticker shock is real. And think about your flight, not just the price, the actual hours in a seat with your kids. That calculation changes a lot depending on where you live. If you get through all of that and you're still stuck, that's exactly what my consultations are for. Not to sell you on Hawaii, but to help you figure out if Hawaii is actually the right call for your specific trip. You can book them at hawaiitravelwithkids.com under Hawaii Travel Consultant. I do 60-minute sessions for $149 or 90-minute deep dives for $199. Look, there's no wrong answer here. Hawaii is incredible. Mexico is incredible. The Caribbean is incredible. They're just incredible in different ways. The mistake people make is trying to force Hawaii to be an all-inclusive resort experience or trying to make Cancun into a cultural adventure. Each destination has its strengths. Pick the one that matches what you're actually looking for. And remember, you don't have to pick just one forever. Do the all-inclusive this year when you need easy. Do Hawaii next year when you're ready for adventure. You can have both in your life. I do. If Hawaii is calling your name, whether that's this trip or the next one, Episode 66 will help you figure out which island is actually the right fit for your family. And for everything else you need to plan your trip, all my favorite and trusted resources are at hawaiitravelwithkids.com under the Hawaii Resources tab. Car rentals, tour companies, travel gear, it's all there, and I keep it updated. If you decide Mexico or the Caribbean is a better fit right now, my travel agent partner Kim at Stuffed Suitcase can help you find the best deals and put together the right trip for your family. I'll be back on Monday with another episode. Until then, happy planning. Aloha.